Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Empower Your Soul. I am so excited to have my friend April Curry on the podcast today. She's an amazing Akashic Records reader and intuition development teacher who helps people become their inner guru. We actually met over on TikTok, which is great. We interacted on a bunch of posts, chatted together, which was great. And then I eventually signed up for her advanced Akashic Records course. And I have to tell you, everything she said completely blew my mind because she took the guideposts off of everything I was taught in Akashic Records, and she showed me a whole new innovative approach to the records. So I honestly think of her as my Akashic Records guru, and she's all about helping others do the same through inner guidance. And I think all the listeners today are going to absolutely love this conversation. So April, thank you so much for being here. It means so much for me that you're doing this podcast today.
Nicole, it's a pleasure. I've been looking forward to it.
Oh
So,
my goodness.
yeah.
I know we had to reschedule this a bunch of times. You were sick. I was sick.
There was
So,
a lot going on energetically too.
yeah. And I think that's what's beautiful about a lot of your social media posts. And I know you do a weekly like energy rant, or I think that's what you call it on YouTube, where you give everyone the energy updates. So yeah, I mean, everything happens in divine timing. So hopefully the energy is good today for this conversation. I feel like it is.
It is. It feels like everything has calmed down and it does feel like there's some ground to stand on today.
Oh,
So,
cool.
it's
All right. That's amazing. So it's really fun when April and I get together. So fair warning for the listeners, because we'll just like intuitively like hit off each other, get downloads in the middle of this. So we're just going to let this flow where it needs to flow. But I just want to maybe start with a quick intro, maybe about you and the Akashic Records, because I have talked about the records a little bit, I'm going to say on the podcast, not too much yet, but for the listeners who maybe aren't as well versed in it, how would you explain the Akashic Records and why is it such a game changer for you and your clients?
Yeah. And I feel like it's a game changer for everyone. I wish everyone would open their records because the world would look much different. The Akashic Records, in my own words, is this vibratory plane that has the information of everything that's ever existed, past, present, future. But the information that each individual soul receives is for their highest vibration, highest good, and the information that they have an affinity for as a soul. For instance, if someone has a love for music, they'll find more aspects of music theory, maybe sounds that have never existed down here on Earth before, and receive that information up there. I use the Akashic Records personally to create modalities, to create courses. It also, when anyone first starts opening up their records, they're seeing that there's all these layers of themselves being peeled back, which is the layers that are holding us back, or I'd like to say the layers of resistance. And that could be anything from unconscious patternings, trauma from childhood, insecurities, anything. Sometimes we're not even aware that we have these things that we're carrying with us. And so the Akashic Records, like right when you learn how to open them, that's its first goal, is to peel back those layers. So then you become this beam of light that's able to receive more information. The more light you have in your body, the higher and different aspects of the records you can go. But ultimately, I'd like to call it the chat GBT of the universe. And you literally can type in a message like in your head and you can get an answer immediately. And ultimately, the records are here to help us grow, to be living and existing in the soul perspective, so we can sit in the energy of compassion. So we have the capacity to have a big picture, triangulated perspective of what's really happening in front of us, and then receive messages to take action on so we can live this heaven on earth experience.
And I love that answer. Like that is just the most profound answer. And I'm laughing as well because I call the Akashic Records the Google of the soul. So I love that we both kind of went there.
It's so true though.
It is true. You can literally ask anything and they'll give you what you're supposed to know, whether it's actually what you asked for or not, which is always a whole other thing too. And I definitely want to go down the rabbit hole, but maybe before we go down the rabbit hole, I'd love if you could talk a little bit maybe more about yourself and what was your journey to get you to the Akashic Records.
Oh yeah, the journey. Some of us don't know that we're divinely connected as a child. A lot of us are, you know, right at those early years, we're more connected than we are most of our lives. And I had a very intuitive childhood. No one around me had the language or understanding of what was happening to me as a child. And so I was misdiagnosed with ADD, other behavioral stuff, and um, learning disabilities. But ultimately, what I was doing as a kid was I was exploring and I was receiving messages and didn't know it, had no idea. And I closed it off at around like 12, 13 because I was trying to live with the world. So I was like, okay, oh, that's wrong. Don't do that. Let's try to exist amongst the world. And I tried to fit in so badly. I tried to fit in so badly. I joined the Navy. I went to college. I tried to go to college. I had a corporate job. I did all these things and I was just never satisfied. I wasn't happy. I felt like I was living someone else's life. And ultimately, I felt really powerless. And I said, I can't live this way. There's no way this is how we're meant to do it. And I pulled out of society. I bought a camper and I got into Zen Buddhism around 2012. And I just traveled around the country, and that was my focus, was getting centered, knowing what that felt like. My intention wasn't to get intuitive, it was just to become whole and to understand the truth. Once I started to come into that essence within myself, I had this desire to do it with other people. And so right when I thought that, I almost got like booted out of the camper immediately. Like all these things started to happen. And I ended up getting this divine kind of support to move to Maui. I didn't even want to move to Maui. I was like, oh, this would be a nice place to live. And then all of a sudden, everything clicked. I started my business out there as a Reiki practitioner because I got into Reiki and I thought it was really nice with meditation. Once again, everything's really silent. And the reason why I wasn't communicating or doing intuitive stuff was because I actually had a fear of communication. I had a fear of saying the wrong things. I grew up in an environment where everything was really judgmental and controlled. So there was a fear there. And I met this woman who taught me how to open up the records prior to Maui, and I just started to get into it. And when I was in Maui and doing starting this Reiki business, I started to notice my confidence in what I was reading in the records was changing. All of a sudden, I'd go to the store and be completely quiet, and a week later, I was like blabbing and like having great communication with people. And so it started to unravel these things that were holding me back. And I didn't even think about turning this into a job at that time. I just got told from the Akashic Records, hey, you're too isolated. You need to go to a party. The first party I went to, someone wanted an Akashic Records reading. Thank you, Akash. So that's an example of how this kind of just got started. I realized that if I just follow the messages, don't question them, don't think they're irrational answers, that's how my life is. Like I get told to do something, I don't think twice about, well, that's not how you do it. I go, wow, that's a big move. You want me to do that? And it's like, yes. I'm like, okay, let's go. And every time that I follow the messages 1,000%, everything it's been the coolest life. Honestly, Camper April was fun. This is more fun. I'm having a blast.
My gosh, I love it.
My goal is to help people like just to recognize that they don't have to work so freaking hard. They don't have to fit into something that isn't them. They can learn how to access a portal to their own healing, awaken into themselves, follow the messages from the records, and live this kind of flowing into a successful and abundant life. And including like successful relationships and having self-love for yourself and being a part of community in a soulful way. No.
It's
Yeah.
so inspiring. And I think that's what's so different. and what drew me to you about the way you work, because you take the records and you want to bring people, I'm going to say it this way, from good to great, because I know that you just genuinely love people. I know you see the best in people, and I know you genuinely care and want to help people. And you're all about empowerment, which is why I think I love you so much, and wanting to make people their best selves. And a lot of people, I want to say, where I've struggled historically with Akashic records, and a lot of, and I'm self-taught, and I know you have some amazing classes that I definitely want you to chat about at the end. And a lot of what I've been self-taught has been more so about like going into past lives and uncovering, your hidden karma. I don't even like using the word karma, but your hidden traumas that carry through this current life, and how to undo that and how to heal it. And I think there's power in that. But I think that when you're starting, and I love your perspective on this, when you're starting the Akashic records, like, I think you get bombarded, because I think most people get started to look at past lives, and like, spoiler alert, we die in every lifetime, usually in a very tragic way, right? So a lot of people, when they hop into the Akashic records, it's not the best experience. And I know that you use it as a tool, you use the past lives as a tool to, I'm going to say, springboard you into the future. But for you, it's all about the current energy, the current lifetime. What can we do now? And I love your point of, I'm not focused on the outcomes. It's just your step by step. What's your next thing you should do to get you on wherever you're supposed to go on this journey of life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like with this is the thing about the Akashic records. Everyone is meant to utilize them in an individual way. You know,
Mhm.
there's been in the past, I feel like there's almost like a prescription of like, this is how you read the records. And it's like,
Yes.
well, no, not really. Like, it's actually not a library. Like, a lot of people say it's this library that you can access, and it's like, well, you can create an image in your head that gets you into the energy of the Akashic records by, viewing it as a library. But the Akashic records is this channel, this field. It looks and feels different for each soul. And so when you open your own records, you're going to have, as an individual soul, going to have a desire to check out a certain topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, this is the prescription of how to read the records. Yeah. I do like to teach people, I do like to teach people how to get in touch with their life purpose in the beginning, how to read past lives, how to ask, why do I feel tired today? Some of the most profound information in the records is asking questions like, why do I feel tired today? I did that one time, and I've done it more than once, but this particular time I said it, I thought it was because of something else. My human perspective thought, oh, maybe I'm just working too much, or maybe blah blah blah. And it was about my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this 20-minute experience I had in the records where they were unfolding, like, you're tired because this is actually holding down your nervous system. And they showed me images and imprints. And I was like, oh, okay, what do I need to do to release this? And they said, forgive it, forgive it. It's okay. They just did the best that they could. They love you on a soul level. Your parents love you. And I just broke down into tears, and I felt all of this weight off my body, and I never felt that weight again. And that's a great example of how you can use the records just like in everyday life. Hey, what should I get at the grocery store? What's great for my health today?
Mm-hmm.
How can I have the best relationship with my partner? How can I be a better mother? Like, there's so many ways that you could use this, and it puts you in a space where it makes life just so much better.
It's totally true. And inside, I'm having this funny dialogue as well, because I've actually gone in there and asked why I'm so tired all the time, like constantly tired. This is my like my no. By the way, like, don't have good habits, right? I go to bed late, I wake up early, I got two kids, like, not good habits. I'm a workhorse, even though I should probably rest sometime. But it's just interesting to me too, because I think what's so cool about the records is you'd never expect the answers that you're given. And I think the example that I have with why am I so tired? And actually, it's funny that we both went into the records for the same kind of question. Why am I so tired? And they said it's because I am spending so much energy on the persona who other people expect me to be. And it's literally my ego holding down my true authentic self and my soul. And that's why I'm so tired all the time.
Yep. Yep. I know that one. That's why I'm like, yep.
But like, but it literally felt like, and they show it to me and, you know, your different clairs and everything like that. Sometimes it's channeled, sometimes they'll send me images. And it was almost like the ego is the armor I put on. And as soon as I take that armor off and I live my purpose and I do what I'm supposed to be, I will have boundless energy and I'll never be tired again.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Because I used to get tired all the time, and
Mhm.
it's just gotten easier and easier and easier.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, every message that they give you that you should take action on helps you to get closer to that too. So you're living, like, I'm not living a 9 to 5. I'm not living an entrepreneur life. I'm literally living in exactly like, hey, let's get on and do a podcast today. Oh, I'm gonna take a nap or a walk. Oh, I'm gonna do a reading now. It's like, it's I have one of those aura rings that check your nervous system and your heart rate variability. I'm
Yeah.
never stressed out ever. You should have seen me 5 years ago. That was a different story.
It was literally like, I wonder how stressed camper van April was doing then, you know?
Camper April was like going into a grocery store would stress her out. Let's
Right.
just say that. Yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh. So let me ask you too, because I know you do so many readings for people. I know you read for yourself quite a bit too, and I know you teach it. Like, what are some of the, I'm going to say, I'm going to leave it to you and wherever you feel divinely guided to go. Are there like certain questions that you love to ask, or is there a story of like a really cool client experience you had, or maybe with yourself about like what the records uncovered that was totally unexpected?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because the memory. So,
Yeah.
like when you say that to me, I'm like, I genuinely, it's hard to remember the messages and the
Mhm.
readings because when you're opening the Akashic records, the information isn't from my actual physical brain, it's from like the universal mind.
Yeah.
So when I'm plugged in it with that person, I'm pulling that information. But the minute we're done, I'm back into April and doing April stuff. And then I'm like, an hour go by, I'm like, I don't remember what that reading was about. But if that person comes back a year later, I remember all of it right when I open their records. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's
so different.
really cool. Yeah, I could just so whenever someone goes, "Hey, what's the most profound thing?" I'm like, "Whew."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
let me see if I can retain something. Let's see if they want to give me something. Actually, yeah, here we go. Um, a lot of the profound stuff comes from the courses, from doing like the Become an Akashic Records course and the Advanced Akashic Records course. And this is something that's happened over and over and over again. It's not necessarily a message I received. I've watched people go from PTSD, hypersensitive nervous systems, health issues, ADHD, anything, like really, a thyroid problem, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammation in the gut, nervousness, anxiety, even like overinflated ego. And I've
Okay.
seen over and over again people turning into these compassionate, whole, calm, solid beacon of light humans slash souls that are here now extending that energy to the people that are close to them and are in their circle. And that's something that I see on a regular basis. And it's the reason that keeps me going because I've seen people barely be able to live their lives to I'm helping so many people right now. And I'm doing it in a calm way where I'm connected and I feel safe and whole within myself. That's
I
really
love
cool.
that. I
Yeah,
love
that's
that.
my
And
favorite.
I think that's so important for people to know too, because when you take an Akashic Records class, like with you, April, it's not just learning the modality, it's actual like therapy
Yeah.
and healing yourself, because that's the whole intention, I believe, behind your course, right? Is like how can you access your own records and find the information that's waiting for you that you just haven't been able to get your fingers on yet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just incredible. It's so incredible the work that you do.
Yeah. And I feel like where the world's going at collectively, like we are really like right now in the last couple of years, maybe a couple decades, we've been mental plane focused. Everything's mental. Like that's fine and dandy. But what I've read in the Akashic Records, we're stepping into the heart, we're stepping into connectivity and innovation. And that requires getting real with yourself. That requires getting in your body and feeling yourself, feeling your heart, what your needs are. And whether you're suffering or whether you've been successful and you feel good and you feel balanced, it is going to show you a better version and an easier version and a more rewarding and exceptionally loving and joyous and compassionate version of what you're already doing or better. So it's I wish everybody would open them.
Absolutely. And it's just, I'm not an astrology girl, but I realize that's what we're stepping into with some of I'm horrible with it, but I feel like there's like parallel with what you're hearing in the Akashic Records and the energy that like astrologers are also saying that we're kind of walking into. I think it's with the age of Aquarius, right? Is like moving into the heart a little bit too. So I don't think there's any accidents whatsoever. And I don't want to talk astrology, but because I can't hold my own there. But I love that. And I love how in our advanced Akasha class that I took with you, how you posed all those unique questions, about ourselves. What are our strengths? What are our blind spots? Like asking the records about what's the energy coming in for certain industries in the future, right? Like, and I think that's why you're so freaking good at what you do, is because you're so open to such a new way of thinking about the records and acting with the records. And when you approach things, not in a book, but when you approach things from this unlimited potential perspective, like anything is possible. And you live that every day.
Yeah. And a lot of the reasons why I did that was I noticed this is actually I have that essence in me naturally, but another part of it was I saw the spiritual like just community kind of keep it to themselves. Like if you talk this way, if you act this way, and you are, you can open the records. And I'm like, when I opened them, I was like, everybody can open the records, everyone. And
True.
the
Yeah.
other thing is people who are naturally intuitive are, and I don't know if I'm going to go off topic here or not, but people who are
Yeah.
naturally intuitive have this desire sometimes, a lot of us, to go high frequency. We get addicted to going high frequency. And in the records, a lot of people in the spiritual world will try to go to those higher frequencies and try to get it, but it's not grounded here in this reality. Although those perspectives are really nice and quite lovely, they're not doing much for us. They might expand you for a moment, but what I started to see was if you use the records for practical application, that's where the true expansion is. That's if you're a human in a body, and we're meant to stay in our body and get the information that's right for us in this lifetime and utilize it. And I've done both. I've gone both ways. And the practical approach has expanded me so much more, and I've had so much benefit from it just by staying focused on the human stuff.
That. And I agree. That's where I struggle with a lot of the other modalities, professions, because they keep like everything is this, it's either in a box, right? Or it's so high to your point, like from a vibration perspective, that it's not like do you know how many people come to me, April, and you probably get them too, that are like, I've been told that I was here for greatness. I know that I'm supposed to make a big impact. And like they have so many, I'm going to say, professionals or readings that they go to, that they hear this over and over again, but no one's telling them what that is. How are they going to get there? Is that actually meant for this lifetime, or are they actually just tapping into the energy of their unlimited potential soul, right? Like, because those are two different things. So I love the way that you approach it in this like freaking practical application that is actually going to help people, because what are we even doing if we're not
Yeah.
helping people?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that the more that you make it it hasn't been shared. The Akashic Records hasn't been viewed as we can all do it and we can all use it in everyday life. And, I just want to keep reminding you or reminding everyone that it is the chat GPT. It is the chat GPT. You can ask out there questions and get an out there answer. And you can stay here and ask a question and get an answer.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I'm getting reminded right now that a lot of probably your students and probably my students and people that are listening to this podcast struggle with trust with what they're hearing from those spiritual modalities. So I'm gonna put you on the spot, sorry, April, and ask, what have you heard helps people build the trust of either hearing or listening to the messages in the Akashic Records, or frankly, probably any modality, let's be honest.
Yeah. So most of it's from self-experience and then teaching. The people that really start to feel like they're trusting their messaging are ones that are okay. For women, a common pattern is doubt. Oh, that's a little weird. Like you're thinking, oh, that's a little weird. And kind of trying to control the messages, or I want to do a good job and get the right message. That's all mind. The mind is interacting and muddying up your actual connection to the records. So if you can take a second and be like, I love you, brain, but please go to the side. I'm going to come back to you. I love you. I'm going to come back to you. You don't deny your brain, because then your brain's just going to get more thinky. Like that's from my experience. And then I go, all right, I'm going to throw spaghetti at the wall here. Let's have a good time. What's this message? I don't even care if I get one. I'm having a good time. I'm having fun. And whatever comes through when I ask this question, I'm here for it. And if I don't get a message, that's fine. I'm not going to judge myself. Judgment is another way that you can cut off the connection. And I'm just going to assume that it's not time for that yet. And sometimes the message comes a couple weeks later. Sometimes I get something else that I wasn't expecting. And all is well. The best thing you can do is just sit in loving neutrality. Notice when you fall out of loving neutrality. You could think of loving neutrality as being this like bowling bumper section. And this is your intuitive channel where you're getting the Akashic messages. And if you're like in doubt, you're out of the bumper. Your bowling ball went over and went woo. But if you're like, I love myself, it's okay, I don't care, I have compassion, I love, and I'm fine, and my emotions are in this calm space, you're staying in the bumper and you'll be able to receive the messages. Those messages are accurate. The only time that your intuition is inaccurate is when you're thinking something about the message.
You're judging the message.
You're judging the message. With men, because I help a lot of men. I think it's really cool, actually. It's like 30 or 40% men.
Wow.
Yeah. I love
way
it.
more than mediumship. It's like 90% women in mediumship. That's crazy.
Yeah. But I feel like with the Akashic Records, men, like there are messages for men to explore and to create things in a masculine way. And it feels like it's time for them to open them and discover new aspects of masculinity and approaching work. But for men, the thing that pulls them out of the loving neutrality channel, common pattern, this is just a general pattern, is, oh, I got it. I know what I'm doing.
Solvers, yeah.
Yeah, or, oh, if I can do this, watch this. And it's like, okay, and it'll kind of like pull them out. And, or, oh, I don't need this. I already know all this. I don't need this. Like some of them will do that too. And then they won't be in their channel anymore because they've decided that they know it all already. So the key to getting men to stay into this nice little loving neutrality bumper bowling thing, called our intuitive channel, is to know that the messages are not coming from them. It's coming from the Akashic field. It's coming from God. It's coming from this pure space. And knowing that that doesn't mean that that makes them powerful or all-knowing. It's more of being, the more humility you have, the more power you have, because you're sitting in your heart, and the more truth you can see for yourself and everything around you. And that seems to be kind of like, I've had such good Akashic Records readers that are men. That doesn't happen a lot. they already come with humility. But I'd say that's like a general pattern.
And it's a little funny too, because I think as you're talking about the difference between where you've typically seen females versus males get out of their power, I guess I'm going to say it that way. Like I definitely fall into obviously the male side of the house. Like I'm the one who's
Oh,
like
cool.
this, like no problem. And I think that's just because of, you know, my corporate background and the way my brain works. Cause I'm a project manager. I'm like, okay, you just give me the details. I'm naturally a problem solver. I will go solve it on my own. But if you stick around and you don't get your head in there, they're going to help you figure out the how, which is so cool.
Yeah, and let's take gender out of it. That's a
Yeah.
masculine perspective. That's a
Yeah.
masculine trait, and that's a feminine trait. So
Yeah.
it could be a combo. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so, so rad. What else were you, let me see if I can get this question out. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure we share today about the Akashic Records, about you, anything that's popping in?
Yeah. Two things,
Yeah.
three things.
Ooh, I love it. Love how spirit works with you too. Yep.
Yeah. If you feel that you need to heal before doing this work, or that you need to prepare for it, or that you need to get X, Y, and Z done in order to be mentally in the space to do it, I will tell you that the Akashic Records gets you into those spaces. And so it's not trying to do those things before you do this work. You're going to get the experience when you do the work. The reason I say that, people, when we talk about this, when they know that it's for them, they'll have the visceral feeling that I want to do this.
Yep.
And the only thing that I notice with what holds people back is when they think that they're not ready, but they know they want to do it. And it's like when the calling is loud, it's time. If you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not really into it, that's
Yeah.
fine, whatever. Like, it's not for everybody. And if you don't want to do it, then it's a waste of time. But if you're listening to this and you're like, I feel at home, there's something about this that makes me feel home, don't let the mind trick you out of not doing it. I've seen it a lot. I've seen it happen a lot. Um, number
And
two.
pause before number two. Am I going to screw you up if we go, if I comment on that?
No, go for comment.
No, because I think it's so important too, because I teach a lot of spiritual foundation classes, and a lot of that is understanding that a lot of people walk into this work because of something that just catastrophically fell apart, like a dark night of the soul in their lives. Not always, but something falls apart and they start questioning what's going on in life. And I think that's so important, because there's a lot of people, I'm going to say, that walk into mediumship work that want to do so to connect to their own departed loved ones. And I think that's amazing, but you got to deal with your own shit before you go and sign up for some of these modalities. But I love to hear your perspective that that is not true with the Akashic Records. You should be working hand in hand with the Akashic Records to help you understand, heal from some of this, I'm going to say, like trauma that is left over, that's hindering your ability to move forward in these spiritual modalities. And I think that's so important to call out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would say I learned mediumship after I went into the records. Everyone's different. Some people go mediumship and they'll go records, vice versa. But yeah, I wasn't, that's personally, that's my experience. I wasn't ready for mediumship unless I healed first. Where I've seen people that like mediumship and they're like, well, now I want to try the records. So it's just different for each person.
Yes, absolutely.
Number two. You know how I know this is kind of like in like the world and like society, but I do like the Akashic Records on giving us a pulse. I always get a pulse of what's coming in.
Yeah.
And I'm always, I'm going to say the word always, I'm always prepared by accident because I just followed the messages. But one of the things that I have been getting from the Akashic Records is we're in a big innovative time.
Mm.
And people who are not creativity comes from being in the heart, being able to get into an alpha brainwave state and to just let things flow into you. And so if you are trying to be, working with AI technology, it's like, well, why don't you invite a little bit of this side too. So you can then innovate something that can be leading in an industry. Why not innovate something that can help humanity in the records through your creative channel? And that's a thing about the records I don't think people talk about a lot is it's literally where Albert Einstein hung out. That's where Tesla hung out. Right? And we're all creating and trying to innovate things with just our brains down here. When Tesla was probably one of the biggest, like most connected men up in the records. And look what he did. And he had so much to give and provide. We don't necessarily see all of it, but he really went to the depths of the records and created and innovated through that. So just know, like we're heading into an innovative era, and having your connection helps with that.
I love that. And Edgar Casey too, right? And I know he wasn't necessarily an innovator, he's more of a healer, but
Edgar Casey went into a hypnosis state. Like he had to be put under hypnosis. This is an interesting story.
Ooh, okay.
I read into the field back then. So the Akashic field and the electromagnetic field changes a lot. So it was denser back then.
Oh,
it was harder to read back then. So he had to go be put under hypnosis to be able to get into a state like that.
holy shit.
Now there are readers who were reading back then that didn't need to do that, but if you listen to some of the stuff that they were reading out, you're like, damn, you could just feel how heavy and hard it was to read back then in that particular time frame in our history. Right now, because of, you and I are talking, you're in a different state. I'm very far away from you.
Yeah.
So our brain is getting acclimated, our body, our soul is getting acclimated to the fact that we can communicate in a distance. And it kind of fluffed up the electromagnetic field to lightness. And now we have this ability, everyone has this ability to read effortlessly. Compared to Edgar Casey.
Right. Wow. That I'm literally like writing notes and I'm like, I'm gonna go into the Akashic Records about that later.
It's fun. It's fun to also go on the History Channel and be like, what really happened?
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm gonna use that one with my husband for sure. He's a big history guy. That's
Awesome.
amazing. I love that perspective.
Yeah. And I guess lastly, I feel like health was really big for me, like learning about my own individual health in the records. I ask every 4 months, like, what should I eat for my most optimal health? What mindset should I have? I was a person that suffered from a very severe eating disorder, and I had disordered eating thinking, like for after I recovered, but it was like 7 years where I would say things like, well, I'm just always carrying 15 extra pounds no matter what I do. And the records told me, hey, April, eat whatever you want. Stop working out so hard. Enjoy your life. You'll be fine. And I just started to do it. I followed it with 100% conviction. I was its guinea pig. And my thyroid disorder left. My rheumatoid went down. Like it's in remission. And I had malnutrition that completely like found its space, and I just the weight melted off, and I'm just happy. And that people will say eating disorders is a lifetime disease, and it's not true at all. You can heal yourself. So health is very big in the records. If you have like anything that's going on, you literally read what you can do to help, optimize your health. Is it going to tell you like all the scientific reasons why? No, it'll give you like a couple of sentences that is going to put you on the path to health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's incredible. I love that. I mean, I don't have as grand of a story as you do, my dear. I know, you have used the Akashic Records for this, and I've heard you say this over and over again. So I have to be 100% honest with you. As I started this podcast, and this is not my strong suit, talking for a very long time is not, I'm very good when I have data and evidence and I know the information, but me just getting on here, hitting record and going is I'm going to say difficult for me. It's a challenge for me that I need to work through, which is totally fine. As I started, and I'm sure as folks listen to this podcast, you're going to go through the first few episodes. You're going to hear ums, you're going to hear likes, you're going to hear us. And I used to sit in the records and say, heal me so I don't use all the filler words. And it literally worked. I watched myself recently over some readings that I did, listened to a podcast episode that I did. And I feel like for the most part, they've gone away, which blows my mind because I have used them my entire life. And it maybe one or two times I was in the records asking them for that healing, and then it's gone.
That's awesome.
Crazy.
That's awesome. That's exactly what you're supposed to use them for.
Crazy to me. And I have to say, what sold me with the records when I first read the book, and this was probably, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And it wasn't hard for me to do the records, but I was like, what is this? I don't know if I believe in this, right? Maybe I shouldn't be saying this towards the end of the podcast, but what sold me on the records is what you mentioned. When you heal it past, present, and future.
Yeah.
To the records. So probably my background, probably the way I was raised in my household, high anxiety 24/7, like constant anxiety, can never not be nervous or worrying about something. And I went into the records and I asked, what is the lifetime that caused all of my anxiety? And I was shown this lifetime, and I was this farmer who couldn't, I think it was, I'm trying to remember. I'm just going to go with what's in my head right now. I was this farmer where it was desolate. Like I couldn't provide for my family. All my animals died, all my crops died. And like, that's what the lifetime that sparked this anxiety in me. And I've never been able to, I'm going to say, get rid of it. And in that moment, when I was reading the book, they're like, this is how you heal it. So I followed that step by step. And within 20 minutes, seeing this past life, seeing all the different perspectives that's going to help me heal and remove this anxiety from my life, I literally solved my anxiety in 20 minutes. 20 minutes, it was gone, and it's been gone. And I still get in my head about things, but it's not waking all day, every day. I can learn how to turn it on, shut it off for certain things. But there was always this underlying hum of anxiety my entire life, and now it's gone.
That's amazing.
Right? Like
amazing.
Crazy. It's like the Akashic Records are insane. So
yeah, they are.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I do have one more thing because it came through, and we've been talking about how it heals ourselves, like just you reading them on an individual level. It's really potent. The benefit of reading other people's records, I haven't really quite tapped into that yet. When you're reading another person's Akashic Records, it's so simple to think like, oh, they're a separate entity than I am. Like they're a different person. When someone is coming to you, we are all one energetically. And when you are reading someone's records, it has a different perspective. It has a different frequency. So you're learning from that space versus just you. And they might be asking you about a topic that is happening in your current life. And the perspective that their Akashic Records gives that person is helping you heal as you're reading them. So that happens. Another thing that happens is when you are reading another person, they have a love for something that you may not have a love for. So remember, all the messages we receive is what the soul is in love with about receiving. So it expands you to see what that is for that person. And now you have a little section in the records that opens up to you for it. If you want to.
It's like possible. I love it.
Yeah. So the more you read others, and I'm not saying you have to do it professionally, like we do it professionally, but if you just do it for your child, like you have a way of navigating life on a very connected level with your child. Like even if they're an infant, you can open their records, and you're the mother, you can open the record and be like, what do you need? What is your purpose? How can I help you with your purpose? How can I help you walk? What types of food do you enjoy? What types of food do they enjoy? And like now you're having this deep connection with your child. Like, so you can use the reading other people. Mind you, it's important to ask for permission. Children, if it's your child, you're fine.
Yeah.
But it's important to ask for permission. But you can have some of the most connected relationships just by opening each other's records.
Oh, I never thought about it that way, April.
Yeah.
Because I literally had a session last week where somebody was struggling with a relationship with their children, and I told them this is what my answer was, and now I feel like it should have been a different answer, which is totally fine because we're always learning and growing.
Yeah.
I told them to call in their higher self for feedback, right? Do some channeled writing, automatic writing, bring in their higher self, do some automatic writing for it. But I love your perspective. So would you say it's ethical if, like, I came to you and I have problems with my son because I love him. He's a lot. He's a lot. Would it be ethical for me to be like, can you open my son's records and ask him what the fuck?
So it's not ethical to do that. But when it is ethical, whenever a mother is coming, because I get this a lot, it's probably 50% of my readings, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, where someone's like, I don't know what to do with my child, or how can I best help my son, even if they're grown or, whatever age. As long as you're getting information that's going to help the person that is getting the reading,
Right.
how they can support the relationship, because
Yeah.
that's still in their realm of the person that's getting the readings records.
Okay. Got it.
Sometimes the purpose of the child, or like all those things that would be in this records of the child, um, will be in her records if she needs to have that information to help the relationship.
Oh, that's a great point. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
point. So you heard
Now,
it
if
first.
she wants to know how much money is in her 22-year-old's bank account, that's not happening.
I assume with that very specific question, you have heard that before.
Oh, like, I just hope they're doing good. Like I'm like, well, let's see how you can help them. Let's see.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. So you heard it here first. If you want to be ethical and read your kids' records, you're going to have to learn how to do the Akashic Records for yourself. So April, do you want to talk a little bit about your class you have coming up in January?
Yeah, I have one coming up January, and every four, yeah, it's every 3 or 4 months we have a new series. So usually you start out with Become an Akashic Records course. It's 8 weeks long, and it has 2 1-to-1s. So you're getting some time with me, but essentially you learn how to build the foundation of reading your own records and reading others' records. And then the advanced class is right after that, and it's 8 weeks long, and it's a bunch of modalities that I created with a bunch of people who, after they took the Akashic Records in the very beginning, I was like, do you want to be my guinea pig? And they're like, absolutely. So we did these classes. So I was about 50 participants, and who I'd like to say co-created with them and the records on the modalities that we have. And some of it's channeling the records, how to heal your brain in the records, how to clear generational karma, like from how many lines back, and like just so many cool ways to manifest the life of your dreams through the soul level. So it's more of like advanced work in the records. And that's the stuff that actually, like, that was another layer of like really just getting me tapped in and honed in. So it's cool to watch people after that, the advanced one.
Oh,
It's my favorite one.
I mean, that's the class I was in. And I can't speak enough about it. It was just so, again, innovative, interesting. And for me, that is I'm going to say an expert in a lot of these different spiritual modalities. Like, I walked into that thinking I knew everything there was to know about the Akashic Records. And then like, I don't have a penny in this thing. Like, you just blew my mind with it. So again, like, if you are someone that's interested in learning about the Akashic Records, if you already know it and you want to next level it, like, April is your girl. Like, she is it. Like, I will point all fingers to you all the time. And by the
And
way,
I'm
when
gonna
I need
say,
Akashic Records readings, I go to April.
and I'll tell you, when I need evidential mediumship, I go to Nicole. Nicole, like, next level. I'm surprised you don't have your own TV show. I don't know if that's like your goal, or probably, I don't know if it is or not. But like the first time I met you, I'm like, oh my God, this woman is the best evidential medium I've ever seen in my life. Like, hands down, like the best. And I've been around a bunch of different intuitives and types. Yeah. Being in Maui and whatnot. And yeah, haven't met one like you yet, Nicole.
Oh, I was
Killing the
always
game.
told
Just
my
like
brain is different, so that doesn't surprise. But thank you. That's really sweet.
welcome. And she's helped me also, like Nicole has helped me find, different ways to ground information too. So Nicole's really good at also teaching how to like ground and implement information that's practical and that's coming from up there. It's
Oh,
beautiful.
that's the two of us together though, because we're both so practical and so
Mhm.
grounded in what we do. And that's why, like, I ain't letting you go. You're not going anywhere, April. We're stuck
Same
together.
Nicole forever.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, April. This was such a freaking ball for me. I really, really appreciate it. And I know again how amazing you are at what you do. I know how you love using the Akashic Records to help people. So seriously, anyone listening that wants to sign up for your class, I don't think she has many. I'm going to release this soon. I don't think she has a lot of spots left for January, but if you are interested, thinking about it, 2 spots, she's saying, as of today, which is December 9th. And I think this will be released next week. But sign up. She's freaking incredible. You won't regret it. And I just want to thank you for giving my listeners some awesome information, number one, and then number two, some practical tips that they could actually walk away with today, and how to use the records differently, and obviously how to use trust too. How do you
Yeah.
push your brain aside and start trusting what you're seeing? So thank you again. For folks looking to connect with you besides these courses, where should they do so?
Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, it's all under Akashic April.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today, April. Love you, girl.
Love you too.
All right. Thanks so everybody for listening in. I will put all of April's information in the show notes, but thank you as always for tuning in to embrace your purpose and empower your soul.